at the political rhetoric of Donald J. Trump and other Republicans into a surge of votes for Democratic candidates in November. Let's listen to Fox News.
To wait to become president, to take a stand right here and right now against the divisive rhetoric that demonizes immigrants and their families. It was appalling to hear Donald Trump describe immigrants as drug dealers, rapists, and criminals. He's talking about people you and I know, isn't he? He's talking about people who love this country, work hard, and want nothing more than a chance to build a better life for themselves and their children. And when people and businesses everywhere rejected his hateful comments, did he apologize? No. He doubled down. It's shameful, and no one should stand for it. So I have just one word for Mr. Trump: basta. Enough!
Illegal immigration. Important. We're going to build the wall. Okay, believe me. We're going to build the wall. And, you know,
meanwhile, not everybody in the crowd last night had a warm welcome for Donald Trump. Some fights were breaking out as hecklers from Black Lives Matter and a Latino rights group started shouting, "Dump Trump," and unfurled their banners out there. Trump supporters took issue with them. The arguments turned into scuffles, some pushing, some shoving, some screaming before the hecklers were then escorted out. You can see in this video. And then after that, everything returned to calm.
In the meat race, that's called landslide. That's called massive victory. I don't think there's ever been a victory. And here we have on a thing called the economy. Would you say that's important? I think so, right? So 67% are in favor for Trump. Okay. We won the state by a lot, meaning in the polls by a lot. Now, a couple of these categories, I have to read them. Illegal immigration. Important. We're going to build the wall. Okay, believe me. We're going to build the wall. And, you know, so we're going to build it. It will be paid for. Who's going to pay for the wall? Who is going to pay for the wall? So, the next category, which is so important, that's okay. That's okay. Don't worry. That's all right. That's all right. That's why we have freedom of speech, folks, you know. And I'll tell you how dishonest the press is. We have thousands of people in this room, 7,000, I think 7,200 people. We have about 10 people over there. They'll get the headline. You won't. That's pretty disgusting.
Well, I found that a very good video. Don't know who made it, but you know, the fact of it is that I don't care who spends the money on America or Mexico to build this wall. It needs to be built. And the fact of it is that Trump standing up to get rid of legal immigrants? No, only illegal immigrants. Strategists involved said the new spending would be the largest Democratic voter turnout ever devoted exclusively to Latino and immigrant voters. Most of the money will be spent through organizations in Colorado, Florida, and Nevada, states with large or growing Latino.
The Union is somewhere around 66-65%, while the same rate is 75 and 85 in the United States and China, respectively. And we cannot ignore the fact that demographic problems have appeared over the last 10 years, which cause our continent much suffering. So, when it was Hungary's turn to take over the presidency work of the European Union, the Hungarian presidency set out from the assumption that we really had no more time to waste. The Union must face the most difficult issues and the most serious challenges. Therefore, we choose the most difficult questions when putting together the program of the Hungarian presidency. We undertook for the 6 months period, first, to introduce the pieces of legislation that allow the coordination of economic governance, or the economic governance of the national economies, with the objective of protecting the common currency, the euro. Second, we also set as an objective that the European energy market should be created, because the European Union is an economic entity that covers 55% of its energy needs from outside the Union. There are many supply islands, and we don't have a unified common energy market. We wanted to see a change in this during the Hungarian presidency. Another objective set was that we should bring the new financial regulatory system closer to the set targets. Despite the ever-increasing anti-enlargement sentiments in Europe, we have to be honest of that, we targeted the further enlargement of the Union. We wanted to complete the accession negotiations with Croatia during the Hungarian presidency, and we also wanted to complete the enlargement of the Schengen zone with Romania and Bulgaria. We also set the objective that Europe should have a common strategy for the Romas in Europe, and social inclusion should be elevated to the level of the European Union. And finally, we also held an informal council meeting for ministers responsible for family issues to take the first steps towards making sure that the governments of Europe do some joint thinking about solving demographic issues, and that a collection of best practices in successful family policies should be compiled for other member states of the European Union. This was the program of the Hungarian presidency. It is a traditional wisdom in the Union that the most difficult questions are not the ones that you can foresee, but it is always the unexpected events that turn out to be the biggest challenges. This also happened to the Hungarian presidency. Beyond the topics I have listed, we also had the crisis in North Africa coming our way, and then the disaster in Japan as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, as a result of all these, the European Union must unfortunately face the serious question if it will react to these challenges by stepping back from the results of integration achieved thus far, or by progressing further on the road to integration. We'll be able to protect and regulate our common currency, the euro, more efficiently than today. Are we serious about maintaining the free flow of persons? Do we enlarge the circle of countries that enjoy this liberty? And finally, do we take at least one more step towards the further enlargement of the European Union, where we see the Balkans as the direction to go, because the Balkans constitute a region of Europe that is surrounded by NATO and European Union member states. It's not about pushing the borders eastwards, but our task is about making an enclave fit for accession. Ladies and gentlemen, from this point, from this perspective of the challenges that Europe faces, can it be understood what is happening in Hungary So let me tell you a few words about Hungary, because the challenges that Hungary is facing cannot be separated from those of the European Union. You also know that in 2008, Hungary was the first national economy to collapse within the territory of the European Union. So that privilege does not belong to the Greeks. Financial collapse happened first in Hungary in 2008, to be followed only 1.5 or 2 years later by other dramatic setbacks within the European Union, including your own country's difficulties. Also, the state crumbled in Hungary in the meantime. Corruption proliferated and grew stronger. The incompetence of public administration grew. Breaking the rules became a way of life, be that public safety or tax avoidance. As a result of all these, my country, Hungary, suffered a complete loss of confidence, both domestically with its own citizens and in the international arena. What was the response of Hungarians to this situation? The response of Hungarians was unprecedented unity. Hungarian voters created a political unity that remains rare and even unprecedented today. A unity that generated admiration on the one hand, envy on the other hand, and also suspicion. In the language of parliamentary representation, we call this a two-thirds majority in the parliament for one party. A unity of two words in the parliament is what we have in Hungarian politics. In the year of crisis management, before the elections, 1 month's worth of pensions were taken away from the people, 1 month's worth of salary was cut from people working in public administration, the retirement age was increased from 62 to 65 years, and the deficit of the Hungarian budget was still 7.5% in the summer of 2010. That was when Hungary launched a large-scale financial consolidation exercise and the turnaround of the budget. Also, we started to complete reorganization of the country because we came to the recognition that Hungary, in her current structure, was unfit to become a competitive economy within the European Union. This is why we announced the transition. We started the transition from a welfare society model to a workfare society model. In this spirit, we have completely reorganized, or are in fact reorganizing right now, the system of unemployment benefits, social welfare benefits, education, pension system, and I could go on. We have introduced a 16% income flat tax. We have cut the corporate tax rate for companies up to tax of 500 million forints, which is the Hungarian currency. We have started building a completely new pension system. We have launched a program to reduce the state debt, and the rate of public debt will be reduced from the current 82% of GDP to the 70% of GDP by the end of 2014. Simultaneously, we also took a very difficult decision. Here in Ireland, I clearly do not need to spend much time outlining the various approaches to financial crisis management. One of the first decisions of my government was that we had to do everything we could do to return to the international money markets. We must reach the point when Hungary is no longer funded by international financial institutions, but the money markets on the basis of commercial considerations. Of course, the opinions of the leaders of international organizations are also important, but when it comes to money, we trust the market's opinion more. We believe that a country stands firm on its feet only if it can supply money to its economy on its own right from the money market by offering proper return, instead of receiving money for its financial needs from international institutions against certain conditions. So we ended our cooperation with the IMF and returned to the financial markets. And I can tell you today, in June 2011, that Hungary has already secured on the markets all the funds it needs to satisfy its payment obligations in 2011 as a consequence of a massive bond issue. This autumn, we will be working on how we can raise funding for our payment obligations in 2012. If you think back that Hungary was leading the list of countries in the biggest trouble, we were before Greece, as I mentioned, in the summer of 2010, and if you look at the current situation, then it is clear that Hungary is no longer mentioned with the countries that represent an immediate financial and funding risk.